user-generated content. Generally when it comes to a game, having the official capacity for people to actually make stuff in the game, whether small or large. Some could argue mods falls in this category, although not all games are built for mod support, just as some games have the fact that you can make mods for them. So don't only focus on games that make it either a feature or a selling point of the game that it can make user-generated content. Infamous 2 will soon have the user-generated content feature be removed from the game due to the fact that the servers will be going down. I assume that also counts Festival of Blood, though I'm assuming Festival of Blood servers probably went down way before this because it's a spin-off game. By the way, user-generated content in Infamous 2 allow people to essentially make their own missions in the game with the way the game did it, using this little node system in the game to try and combine these nodes and everything, or to try and make missions for other players to enjoy. There were also trophies tied to this feature. You didn't make anything too complicated, but it's the fact that there are trophies that were tied to this whole entire mechanic where you're able to just make different kind of stuff with what Infamous offered. So you want to make a level based on the platforming of Infamous 2? Go ahead. You want to make one based off the third-person shooting? Go ahead. You want to try and make your own little storyline in the game, so that it does allow you to also essentially make your own comic book style cutscenes, or at least I remember that being possible for Festival of Blood, but you know you can make dialogue blurbs as well. That was what made this kind of user-generated content really cool, especially since I didn't really expect Infamous 2 to really make into a feature to point to the game, and the fact that they carried it over into Festival of Blood, but sadly not into Second Son, where honestly the different kind of power Second Son gives you, I could see people making a lot more variety with the missions in the game, since imagine Second Son where you can make missions depending on the player only having a specific power set of Delsin, and that kind of cool idea that, man, that would be freaking awesome and everything. But sadly that didn't come to be, so either way, the generated content for Infamous 2 will soon be shut down, so I definitely had to mention how much of a cool feature it was. Of course, gotta mention games that have level editors, such as Doom, and also the likes of Portal 2, although I've seen people get disappointed that Portal 2 didn't exactly add more to the level editor whatsoever, or it's the fact that some things from the main campaign weren't added to it, like apparently defective turrets weren't allowed to be used for level editor, but it's the fact the ability to just make your own levels and share them, but the fact that some communities still make those levels to this day to share with other players, and the fact that you can still find tutorials on how to make new levels for the old Doom games as well, in order to just do whatever you want with them, and the fact that it just adds cool stuff you can do, or even just the idea of trying to make a classic rendition of new stuff from the later Doom games as well, kind of thing. I also know that Portal 2's Educational Edition does also have exclusive features as well with its level editor on top of that, but for the main Portal 2 we're focusing on, it is the fact that apparently it just didn't give you the full sweep of features or really add more to it and everything. Something I'm surprised to learn is the fact that the Advance Wars series has a map editor, even in the GBA entries as well. The reason I'm surprised is because I'm surprised that Advance Wars has this kind of mechanic in order to allow people to make levels and share them into the remake, but none of the official Fire Emblem games do. Yeah, there's Fire Emblem ROM hacks, everything, but I'm just surprised this is a feature that Intelligent Systems didn't put into Fire Emblem, considering Advance Wars, another big strategy game, shows it is possible to try and implement such an idea, but it's just interesting. That's pretty cool of Advance Wars to have that and to keep the feature in the remake as well. So this is a cool one. The fact that Tomb Raider Chronicles, whenever it was released on PC and Mac, added the ability for players to make their own custom levels. Something that can still be played nowadays, although apparently doesn't even require the game anymore, which Granted, it was a bonus disc from the game back in the day, but it's just one of those things, the fact of some PC versions of games will just also include stuff like that. Like I mentioned Portal 2, which also had it as a thing for the PC version. Just a kind of cool thing that some PC versions of or ports will just be like, hey, we're going to give you a bit more control of what generated content you can make in the game, and the fact that nowadays apparently 2 Minute Chronicles level editor can be played without even needing the base game itself, even though you can still purchase the game itself on Steam as well. While making this video, I saw that, Mortal Kombat Armageddon lets you make your own characters, and you're able to use any moves in the game as well for the custom character with no limits. And at first I was like, oh, that's actually very cool. I'm more used to stuff like Soul Calibur, we essentially just emulate a character's fighting style. Then I read the words Mortal Kombat Armageddon had online and went, oh no, and I was right to have that feeling, learning that this May could just make the most busted characters and use them online, because there was no actual limitation to what you were allowed to do, and just go online with it. I was like, it meant people could just make whatever abomination of a character and just go, this is my character, prepared to get obliterated, because nothing is stopping me from just doing the most busted things possible. That is, man, the freaking earlier years of freaking online ability on consoles or something else. I know technically Xbox is far from the early years of online ability on consoles, but roll with me here. You get the idea. The fact that they allowed you to do this for the online mode and just go crazy, and is kind of seen as an example why you don't get to play that much freedom when it comes to creative characters. But at the same time, it just sounds so cool though! Of course, gotta mention the Halo series and the Forge mode, which not only can make your own custom levels and have fun that way, but also entire custom game modes. Something that, while other games had that ability, but combined with the fact that you can also make the levels as well, make you really go crazy with the kind of stuff you can do when it came to Forge mode with the Halo series. To the point where there are people who believe that a Forge mode can salvage a Halo game nowadays, or some going, can it really? With, well, one, user-generated content as a separate mode can't hurt your game at all, except for how long it takes the devs to actually make a feature and resources like that. But it also means that while developers are making their own official stuff, players can fill in the gap in between by making their own fan-created content and using that, playing those modes, sharing those modes, stuff like that. Or even just having modes like that become popular, potentially get noticed by developers, and becoming its own official game mode as well, especially since this was stuff done for a console title, not even for like a PC port or anything like that. It was for Halo, started with Halo 3 on the Xbox 360. So it's stuff that giving console players the ability to just have this much fun creating stuff in the game. There's one kind of thing where people really love the Forge mode, everything, and wish developers would bring it back or do more with it if they do bring it back. Of course, a big one people focus on are entire games that are based around user-generated content, like the Little Big Planet series, which do have their own campaign, teach you how to play the game, emphasize multiplayer, and give you the abilities in order to get more parts and pieces for making levels, but the main draw is making levels and sharing them online and everything, which is why removing such features, which I believe did happen one day, but at this point, I'm sure it's still on mine, is one of those things that kind of removes most of the enjoyment of the game. Even if the campaigns they offer are still enjoyable, everything, the levels of creativity people can do is what makes it real fun. And the fact that it has seemingly limitless potential. Like the stuff from me and my friend going through in a Little Big Planet 2 was just crazy what they were allowed to do, whether it be they could just have full-on copyrighted songs playing in the levels, everything and being perfectly fine, or the fact that some people instead make essential little short movies instead with the game. I would make a level, just a short film. I remember one short film making their own short film rendition of Nightmare on Elm Street, and there was another one that was based on the YouTube series Awesome Video Games, with making their own little short based off of it, and just stuff like that you can do, where that was the main appeal of Little Big Planet, everything. One of those things that once those servers go down, well, there also goes the big appeal of the game, which then led to Media Molecule deciding to take the ideas generated content and expecting it bigger, grander, into the game Dreams, all about user-generated content, to the point where there's a streamer I used to watch who constantly advertised how much they loved the Dreams program, how much they felt it was superior to every other game development program that never made anything actually with Dreams, but they kept constantly talking about their dream game that they were making in Dreams and never actually made it, but that's not the point. Anywho, there were people who had a lot of faith in Dreams, but in 2023, Media Molecule decided to just move on and stop making new content for it. It's still up and available, but they decided to stop making more support for the game because of the fact that despite the potential of Dreams, they just couldn't live up to it, whether it be the fact of, oh, there's no multiplayer, something Little Big Planet games had when it came to its generated content. Oh, this doesn't really have good community support, something that a PC version could have helped, or to try and make it better for people to access certain levels of everything, rather than just trying to randomly look around and see what it could get, and stuff like that, whole entire thing. Like, Media Molecule had big dreams for, well, Dreams, but ended up not living up to it, to the point where the game they made afterwards, Sackboy's Big Adventure, was just, hey, we're going to make a fun game using a Little Bit of Planet IP, but it's not going to be a generated content game, because I believe PlayStation were like, can you just make a game people want to play and have faith in, rather than something that takes a lot more ambition, a lot more effort on the player's part to really get invested in, but even if you were that invested, Dreams itself just didn't really have the tools for you to really be able to fully share, fully communicate all your ideas in the game. Of course, gotta mention on the Xbox side, there was also Project Spark, a game that I swear people only remember because of they felt slapped in the face, the fact of they used Conquer IP to help promote the game, but apparently people thought they're gonna announce a new Conquer game, which, well, too bad for y'all. But anyway, they used the Conquer IP to advertise the game, and individual developers did make Part 1, a little Conquer, little special story. I say Part 1 because I can't do the rest. By the way, the main point was for people to make their own levels and be creative. Although, just having the name Project Spark probably wasn't helping, as people thought that was, you know, a work in progress name and not the final name, everything. But it's one of those things where Xbox did have their own equivalent and people were able to make entire game bunch of stuff in it, although some just kept it simple since, well, you could put a lot of effort into Project Spark and everything and try and make something big and crazy, but also the fact that your game's also still stuck in Project Spark and can't be moved elsewhere like certain other programs like RPG Maker. So it's one of those things that this game did release on both Xbox One and PC as well, helping the fact that there's now more things to help spread it across, but also just the fact that there's also an early Xbox One title, and the Xbox One didn't exactly do the best at launch. It didn't do poorly, not by the slightest, but Xbox One at launch had the issues of its own backlash to Microsoft's bad ideas with it, so to have something this ambitious as a whole entire make your own game thing be an early product probably didn't help Project Spark at all. And on top of the fact that, when compared, Project Spark's state after everything is the fact that you can no longer share or download levels at all. I think maybe with a program for PC you can still do that, but on console you can. They refunded people who bought the game and also who bought some of the microtransactions within a certain period, and the fact that it shut down within 2 years, while Dream is not getting new content, but Dream is still operational and people can still use it and share levels, while Project Spark is basically you can only make and create your levels locally, and that's about it. Once again, people mostly remembering it because of the Conker's little trailer that they added with it, but even then, they didn't fully make the little Conquer adventure the devs were working on as well. As I already mentioned, RPG Maker is an entire program and game all in itself, allowing people to just create what kind of stuff they want to do with it, or just use the stuff as a base. I remember my sister trying to make her own essentially Legend of Zelda inspired game that involved time travel using RPG Maker, although I found ways to break in and do things that weren't supposed to happen in it. But it's a whole entire thing that many games, especially indie games nowadays, have their stuff still made with or stuff like RPG Maker or Game Maker and stuff like that. I mentioned a grandma mention is freaking Lisa the Painful, Lisa the Joyful, that was made in RPG Maker as well. Undertale was made in Game Maker and stuff like that, where there are still more RPG makers that constantly keep getting made and indie devs using them. And it was why when PlayStation was eyeing up potentially buying a PlayStation by Sony, was eyeing up buying Kanakawa, most people were worried about the fact that owning Kanakawa meant they would own From Software, and people worried about that. I was worried about the fact that Kanakawa also owns a company that makes RPG Maker, so if Sony actually owned that, they would own RPG Maker, could potentially screw over so many indie developers in the process, kind of thing. It was one of those things where RPG Maker, once again, still a big thing. You'll still see people making their games in it, although there are some people who look down upon it to the point where they're shocked when they find out a game they enjoyed was made in RPG Maker, because like I said, it could just be the base for the game, and the assets and stuff that creators make can be so widely different. Obviously, I should mention Minecraft everything to the point where people care more about the creation tools than actually beating the game to defeat an Ender Dragon. But instead, I want to focus on the Xbox Live indie game Fortresscraft and the amount of, I don't want to say backlash, but hurdles that to get across when being made. Simply the fact of Fortresscraft, obviously by its name, is inspired by the likes of Minecraft, Infinite Miner, and Dwarf Fortress, but people viewed it way too close to Minecraft, even though Fortresscraft was solely about the building and everything going on, had a relic system and stuff like that, as opposed to Minecraft, which became more exploration based, also survival based, and stuff like that. But Fortresscraft had the uphill battle, and when comparing it to Minecraft, which the developer didn't really see that as necessarily a bad thing, because they know Minecraft also was inspired by other games, but he didn't like the fact that people made it seem as if that meant Fortresscraft was lesser for it, when people didn't have that kind of ire for Minecraft and it being inspired by Infinite Miner and stuff like that. Even to the point where freaking Notch as well commented on Fortresscraft being very similar and everything. So it's a whole entire thing where it couldn't escape Minecraft Shadow, even though by the time it came out, I believe Minecraft also was not even on Xbox 360 as well, so it was the only kind of game of its type on the Xbox Marketplace. It was also heavily advertised by, and this is something that I didn't know at the time. Well, I knew about the advertisement, but not the person's reputation. It was also heavily advertised by Daniel Keem, aka Keemstar, since he made a deal with the devs of Fortresscraft to essentially be a big promotional person. And it worked, considering the fact that Fortresscraft broke records for an Xbox Live indie game as well, with how much it sold and everything. So it's one of those things where understood an uphill battle in terms of reputation, and technically still does considering how it is, but it's one of those things where it came out and was successful, but it just couldn't escape people constantly seeing it as this Minecraft clone, with some devs not even liking the idea of just calling it a clone and everything, but it was still a massive success and everything, and I remember enjoying it a lot with my friends. I was just shocked at the time that I didn't know Keemstar who he was. I remember his promotions for the game, so I was shocked to go, oh, there was that guy who promoted the game. Interesting. But yeah, apparently he did a lot. Apparently, quote-unquote, Keemstar made millions from his promotions of the game, so good for him, I guess. Another one I gotta mention is Roblox, its creation tools, even though nowadays people don't want to mention Roblox, period, for a variety of reasons. But I'll still mention Roblox here because, one, I didn't even know what Roblox was until the 2020s. I knew about the freaking Oof sound clip, but I didn't know what Roblox was or how far back Roblox was actually released. Something that probably my friends and family were surprised they didn't know about. But the fact that you can make user-generated content for the game and apparently also get paid for it as well with the Creator Store. Although this led to the downside of when there's monetization incentives for a system like this, it does lead to people just kind of slapping things together as well, which ends up dragging down the quality of the creation tools and how they're pretty much seen. On top of Roblox's reputation nowadays that some people just don't want much to do with Roblox, so it's one of those things where just the fact that I didn't know how massive Roblox was, and the fact they can do crazy stuff like full-on just recreate entire games within Roblox as well. And the fact that there's an entire freaking Dead by Daylight game mode that replicates it so well within Roblox, it's just crazy to me. But the fact that even major companies will hire people to make their own official stuff in Roblox, like I believe Sonic the Hedgehog got that as well when it came to making official stuff in Roblox. That's how much of a big creation tool Roblox is that just surprises me, okay? Last but not least is also Mega Man Universe and also Super Mario Maker 1 and 2. Well, I focus more on Mega Man Universe because the idea of making a game that's based around making your own Mega Man levels is such a cool idea, and the promotional trailer also included the idea of other Capcom IPs being part of it as well. Besides, this game never came out. It's one of those things, it's like such a cool idea, and you can tell it's a cool idea because years later you got Super Mario Maker on the Wii U, Super Mario Maker 2 on the Switch as well, where those became such massive successes. Also Super Mario Maker on the 3DS, when people don't talk about that one. Also because such successes that people are surprised that other franchises haven't made their own blank maker. People were like, where's Sonic the Hedgehog maker and stuff like that, because the idea of allowing players to just make their own content like crazy like that. But Mega Man Universe, this is the fact that it was the first one like kind of like that to be unveiled, only for it to unfortunately just never get released at all. It's one of those disappointing things of that era of, hey, here's a cool Mega Man project. You like this? Yeah! It's gone. No! Kind of whole entire thing. But instead we have Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2 that keep on the kind of spirit, although I just wish people would, you know, have other companies do their own equivalent to it. There's one I want to ramble about because user-generated content, not just a cool way of having players make stuff, but also because it draws more people into the game as well, which gets more players, more stuff in it, etc, stuff like that. There's just a cool entire aspect. Or you have entire multiplayer games built around it, like Build Big Planet, mention Minecraft, mention Fortresscraft, stuff like that. Super Mario Maker, well, Super Mario Maker 2 does have a multiplayer mode. People don't exactly recommend playing it like that in the slightest because it's not as good online, but just a fact of it's one of those cool things to be able to share what you create with people on the internet, kind of whole entire thing. And I just got reminded of that because of the fact that Infamous 2 will lose its generated content. And we're making stuff in Festival of Blood that I can only refer to if collectively give me my own freaking PSN stalker because the guy would not leave me alone. But there's a whole entire thing where, once again, it certainly helps a game to have that kind of stuff in it because we'll see the amount of development time it takes to make things that robust, considering there are other entire games where the whole point is generated content, but they either don't last too long or don't get to live out to their full potential for one reason or another. Because stay on the topic, alrighty then, go out there, make your own generated content games, if there are MSO games that do that kind of thing, and I mentioned Mario Maker, but many other things as well that do that, especially for consoles. Or use it like RPG Maker and make your own whole experience and share it to the world, potentially becoming big off of it and everything. That's what I say about it. Alrighty then, good day.